Welcome back, Santa Clarita. You're listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am attorney Wade Skalsky, and this is Wade Beyond the Courtroom. We're actually in bonus time today. It is golden goal time. First person to score a goal wins. We had some technical difficulties early, so we get to have a little extra Wade Beyond the Courtroom today. So we are talking with Joseph Mastrosimone, professor at law at Washburn University. Joe, you still there?
I'm here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's go change tack a little bit. I'm sure we've kind of crushed Uber and Lyft enough as it is. What I'd like to talk a little bit about is a little history lesson for us. So now, Joe, you and I were classmates together at George Washington University Law School in Washington, D.C.
That's right, we were.
And you just educated me that...
first day of law school.
That's right. We became friends the first day, and then we didn't talk to anyone else except for the other two people that we all met together that first day, and then everyone else after that we didn't like because they...
That's right. All the other 1,500 law students we ignored.
We just said, we have found our friends. We all seem to like each other. The chances of that happening again are unlikely, so we're going to hold on to this as much as we can.
And that's probably right. We were talking about lawyers, right?
That's right.
Finding 15 lawyers that you would like. It's pretty slim.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we did lose someone because we had one of our friends, actually, that we had our little clique that we formed with almost no thought or introspection on the first day of when we would go to the... What is it called when you go to the first thing that's an overview of what's going to happen? Orientation. Thank you.
Orientation,
yes.
right.
It was 18 years ago, so I vaguely remember. After orientation, one of our little clique quit. And they were like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm not going to go to law school. And I was like, wow, that was.
Who was that? I don't remember that.
Well, I'm not going to say the guy's name over the air.
You can't say it on the air.
Yeah,
right? Well, I don't remember that.
I'll send you.
I do remember one of our friends. She left after the first year, but now she just graduated from law school all these years later. She went back.
Yeah, well, I have
graduated from.
Go ahead.
From Florida.
I saw that, yeah. No, I have respect for her because after a year, I think you can make a good decision, okay, I like this or don't like this, but I think basing your...
One day is a little hard.
I think it was like the orientation. It was like after an hour, he's like, I'm not doing this. I was
2 hours is a little hard.
I had just spent 4 years of my life and, all the testing and application process, and it took, months and months and months, and then all of a sudden, I'm not going to, change my mind after an hour, but anyways.
And then you have to find a job, right? Who wants to do that?
Right, no, especially back then. So, 98, we're like cave people in 1998. They barely had the internet. So, so Joe, let's talk a little bit about where you work. So tell me a little bit about Washburn University.
Sure. Washburn's a small, semi-private school in Topeka, Kansas, which is it's a state capital. It's sort of right near the state capital. It's got easy access to the state court systems where a lot of our students can extern with the state Supreme Court. It's small, so Wade and I, we went to a law school that had 1,500 law students in it, and our first year section was almost 100 students in it, just that one section of the first years, and the entire first year class at Washburn is about 120 students, so it's much smaller than some of the national law schools, but in a sense it's a lot nicer. We actually get to know our students pretty well. We get on a one-to-one basis with all of them. We can help them career plan and talk to them pretty early on about what it is that you want to do once you graduate. How can we help you do that? Do we know people in that particular industry, in that practice area, in those locations? And I'm always on the phone or on email these days, trying to contact former friends and colleagues and trying to make connections to help students network. So the smaller schools are able to do that, I think, probably better than the larger schools are.
Well, and I find it such an interesting career path for you because when we were in law school, I don't remember you ever saying that you wanted to be a law professor eventually. Is that something that you've wanted to do for a long time?
I think when we were in law school, it wasn't something I gave much thought to. But after leaving, I was teaching part-time. Maybe after 3 years after graduation, I started teaching at GW on a part-time basis in their legal research and writing program as an adjunct, and did that for about 4 or 5 years. And after we moved out here to Kansas, I met my now wife, and she's a Kansan, so that meant we were going to move to Kansas someday, and we did.
Right.
And then I started adjuncting in the legal writing program at the University of Kansas, and liked it so much, and decided, it'd just be pretty cool to do as a full-time job. And a full-time job was available down the road at Washburn, and applied for it, and sort of got it, which is an unusual way of becoming a full-time tenure-track faculty member. Usually you have to go to what they call the meat market in Washington, D.C., and all the law schools are there, and they're interviewing all these people from across the country for all of these positions. And if you want to be an entry-level law professor, you have essentially to be willing to move wherever the job might be.
Right.
And then here I just applied locally and got the job. So
very
lucky.
But let's be honest here, Joe. You're a very smart guy. You worked, when you got out of law school, you worked at a very large national prestigious law firm. You also worked at the NLRB, correct?
Yeah, and those things certainly helped.
Yeah. So you had
There's a certain amount of serendipity involved too.
So
I think I could admit to that.
Yeah, well, but look, it's also you have to, luck is where opportunity meets preparation, and so you were in a situation where you worked for the government, got amazing experience there, and then you worked for, a giant prestigious law firm, got amazing experience there, which helped to overcome your normal lack of social skills, as is evidenced by today on the Wade Beyond the Courtroom. No, and so and now you get to teach. Are you working on some research projects, or is there an area that you're focusing on in terms of your writing?
So I teach labor and employment law, and so I teach those courses. But I also teach, because I did that for many years, and that was really the primary draw that Washburn was looking for. I teach first year legal research and writing. So when I do research and I write these giant law review articles that very few people read, I try to do it in both areas. And so I published an article a few years ago on the NLRB's new rules about how long an election campaign can go on for. And right now I'm working on an article on the judicial ethics of what we call now a judicial bench slap. And that's where a judge sort of, in a written order, makes fun of the lawyer for some sort of bad behavior. And so I'm looking at that to see whether that's a violation of the judge's ethical duties to be courteous and to not lack decorum. So little things like that. But I also so those are big, giant articles that we all have to write to get tenure, and then we have to write those continually to maintain tenure. But what's actually more fun is I get to write little 800-word pieces on whatever sort of bothers me on the day, and I've been publishing those in the Huffington Post, so those are lots of fun.
Well, I'm excited. Can you stay for
Except when you read the comments from people.
Of course. So we're going to go for one more segment on our bonus coverage today. Can you come back for one more segment?
I could do that. The kids are not banging on the door, so I could do that.
Oh, good. All right, well, great. Well, we're going to come back in just a little bit. You're listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am attorney Wade Skalsky, and this is Wade Beyond the Courtroom. Welcome back, Santa Clarita. You're listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am attorney Wade Skalsky, and this is Wade Beyond the Courtroom. So we are for our last bonus segment for today. I have successfully stopped 3 shots on goal by Mike for the golden goal time. But we'll have Joseph Master Simoni on the line. Joe, you're still there?
I am still here.
So at the break, we were kind of talking about our alumni experiences in law school, and I learned that a good friend of mine, Steve Colon, may be listening, so I want to give him a shout-out. Another fine and gifted attorney that if we can get through certain regulations, we may be able to have him on as a guest one day, but we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see.
Have your censor button ready.
That's
right. As long as he's not an Uber driver.
That's correct. Yes.
He's not an Uber driver.
I think he has a lot of cab experience, but again, this is a G-rated show, and we don't want to get in trouble.
Very little of it positive.
That's right. That's right. So we were talking about that you do is it a blog, or what is it on the Huffington Post?
Oh, yeah, it's not an official. I mean, it's part of the blog, I think, is sort of where it shows up on the Post. But I said a number of other faculty members at Washburn have developed a relationship with the folks at the Huffington Post. So whenever we sort of have something we want to write about, it has a nice little home there. We can just essentially send it in, and they'll give it a look over, make sure it's not something too outrageous, and then post it on the Huffington Post. And really the nice things about those is that people actually read them. Right. So instead of some 25,000-word law review article that sits on a dusty shelf in a library or an electronic database that no one looks at, the Huffington Post pieces, actually get read by, 5, 6, 7,000 people, and you can tell that by who likes it or who doesn't. But as I was saying, the one downside is that people do actually get to comment on what it is that you write, as opposed to the law review articles. And I've learned the meaning of the "don't feed the trolls" phrase.
Right. Don't engage in debates with people on Twitter.
Not a good idea.
Right. Well, and listen, I think that's really a great thing, because one of the reasons why I actually like to do the show, Wade Beyond the Courtroom, I'm going to plug my own show on my show.
On your own show.
Yeah, it's for that reason, because, we here at the, Mike and I, we want to bring to people sort of a fun way to talk about the law, because nobody likes to go look up a legal law review article and figure it out. And then also, too, and if you're going to, no one sits down and says, well, I'm going to Google 1099 Uber stuff today. That's not really our listener from our demographics. But that's so great that because you're making the law accessible to people, because law is sort of the lubricant that makes the entire thing work. So
I think that's right. Yeah. So as just a small example, one of the pieces that I posted on the Huffington Post had to do with the governor of Kansas. There was a long-standing executive order protecting gay and lesbian employees from discrimination, and Governor Brownback rescinded that order. And so the piece was how ineffective that was, because essentially these people still had rights under the normal sort of public service statutes that protect employees from being terminated for things that are unrelated to their work. And so it's a way to sort of educate the mass, a sort of a large group of people about what their rights are, even when government is doing things that might suggest that their rights are something less.
Well, and I think, technology is a theme for the show today with sort of the Uber and the Lyft issues that we were talking about, but also just with information. I mean, there is so much information out there, both correct and incorrect, but if you can have a reliable source that creates a forum like the Huffington Post, and agree or disagree with the politics of the Huffington Post, it doesn't really matter. It still is a forum to where people can find information and they can have a relative sense of that they can rely upon it. That this is reliable, especially if it's from an esteemed.
Well, and accurate social media as well, and I've embraced social media. I'm sure you have as well.
Right. Not including Facebook.
It's a game changer.
Right. I mean, in both for good and for bad, but absolutely. So now, Joe, what's next for you in terms of going forward? You said you're working on this one article right now with regards to the judicial slap.
After that, I don't know. I need to come up with a new idea after that.
Right.
It'll probably be something back in labor and employment law. This idea of the Uber stuff is interesting. I just got to make sure no one else has written on it yet before I get a chance to, because it's always the race to publish. If someone else has said it, then you can't say it again. But I'll probably go back into the traditional labor law sort of end of things. And what really is interesting now is this idea of interns and whether they're employees or not. I mean, we have more and more companies that are using unpaid labor, and they call them interns, unpaid interns, and they look like employees for every other sort of sense of the word, except they're not getting a paycheck, and whether that's lawful or not. And so there's been a lot of litigation about that, and particularly with student athletes. I've been trying to look at that. I wrote a small Huffington Post piece on the football players at Northwestern, their attempt to organize a union. So all sorts of I'll have to find one of those, something I'm looking to dedicate 25 or 30,000 words to, and sit down and write it.
Nice. Well, listen, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed talking to you again and kind of reliving some old times off the air. And look, can you become our official Wade Beyond the Courtroom labor and employment resource?
I'd be happy to. If there's ever an issue you guys want to talk about labor and employment-wise or legal right or law school-wise, feel free to give me a call.
All right, brother. Well, listen, I thank you so much for coming on, and you got to also be part of the first ever Wade annual bonus time. So
there we go.
That's right.
Who wins?
That's right. I think it's going to go to penalty shots. So thank you so much, Joe. You were listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am attorney Wade Skalsky, and this is Wade Beyond the Courtroom.